To a quick recap on some work that you've been doing in class. We looked at the timeline of ancient civilizations, and then we started doing some ancient civilization research. These are the research cards that you've used. Now that you're quite familiar with the different time periods from our past, I wanted to connect that to something that you've shown a great interest in. As a class, I've enjoyed watching you play the new card games you're learning, and even some of the magic tricks I've seen. And your fascination with cards reminded me that, well, cards actually have a history too. Cards are an artifact. And we must use artifacts to teach us about the past. So what can cards teach us about the past? Before we move forward in that, we're going to just review some very important information that we might have seen in our research of these three civilizations, the medieval, the Renaissance, and the modern, so that we can use that to inform us about how cards reflect the time period in which they were used and how they were used. So before we move forward, notice I took away a couple of ancient civilizations. The civilizations that I took away are those that came before the Middle Ages. Because really, there's not a whole lot of evidence of cards before that, and if there is, we can't find it. But the true history of playing cards is still a long and fascinating journey, and one that really has a lot of great interpretations over time. Like all history, it's a story. But what we know is that every story does have facts. What we'll do in our research is try to take some of the stories that we see of cards and playing cards through history, and take the facts and learn about how the standard deck of playing cards that we see today became what it is. I'd like to recap a couple of things that will help you for your research from your ancient civilizations research. One thing I would like to point out is the defense column. I'm going to begin there. You'll see that medieval people, they were ready for war at any time, and there were kings and nobles that lived in castles. They had moats, foot soldiers, and all types of protection. This is important for us to note when we think about cards in the medieval ages. I'm going to put a card on top of it to remind us. And then if you continue down, or over I should say, in the same medieval stages, I'm going to be in the beauty and ornamentation. You can see that the medieval ages, or the Middle Ages, they had churches and they were filled with beautiful stained glass windows. And right next to the beauty is the religion, and that it was a very important part of medieval times, and people made pilgrimages to the churches. Both of these about religion, beauty, and ornamentation in the church are going to be very important. Additionally, in the Middle Ages, or the medieval times, communication was also key. Because once the Roman Empire collapsed, you learned that the medieval monks started the art of writing, and the idea of paper even came about in a really strong way. This is going to be important for cards and playing cards. The other thing that I would like to share with you is a little bit more about the Renaissance period. In the Renaissance period, I want to point out a very important piece, and that is that for the wealthy, things were very elaborate, like their clothing and their foods. Things were very elaborate for them. And, well, they had many great feasts. What it shows you, though, is that the rich had some really awesome things, but maybe if you weren't rich, you didn't have so many awesome things. What could that tell us about playing cards? In addition, I want to point out that during the Renaissance period, there were some trades and trading happening. Lots of it, actually. Additionally, in the Renaissance period, it's important for us to remember that the church was still very important. And one of the most important things about the Renaissance period was this printing press. How might a printing press and cards have something in common? And in today's modern society, I'd like to show you that there's one additional thing that might change the game of playing cards. Change it dramatically. And it's all the way under communication. Communication, look, he's got a computer, lots of things online. Would that change how we pull out a deck of cards and play? Another that I would like to point out is that transportation. There's something special about a deck of cards, even if you're on the go. Maybe it's the size or the ease at which we can use them. Nevertheless, you can see that transportation, food and clothing, defense, beauty and ornamentation, religion, and communication all contribute to playing cards as artifacts. In our next lesson, we're going to take our knowledge that we see here and transfer that to what we can see about each of these time periods, but not just the time period, but the countries in them. Because each country throughout these periods had different experiences. We'll see that and reflect upon it with playing cards. Until next time, we'll see you soon.